You're listening to the Justin Beahm Radio Hour.
Happy October 1st and welcome to the Radio Hour podcast. I'm your host, Justin Beahm. I spent the weekend prior to recording here enjoying some early autumnal activities. I kicked off the weekend on Saturday, September 28th at Nightmare Weekend in Des Moines, Iowa, near me, which is the first time they've run a show like that near here. I think it's called GalaxyCon. That's behind that outfit. And man, I am absolutely impressed with their organization. I mean, everything down to their signage, very clear, very easy to navigate, and lots of activities going on. I was prompted to show up there when some friends of mine started texting me that they were going to be a part of the show. That was like Andrew Devoff and Butch Patrick and a couple other folks. And of course, I couldn't resist, had to head up there and check it out. This summer, I was at San Diego Comic-Con, which is, of course, like the real big one. And I have to say, this show was better run than that. And the participation from folks who were showing up was infinitely better. I saw so many more people dressed in costumes, cosplay here in Iowa than I did in San Diego at sort of what is perceived to be the mother of them all. So I can't say enough good things about this Nightmare Weekend. I hope they return again next year for you guys to check out. They had panels with great, even down to how the monitors in the room for the panels were promoting who was on stage. Everything was absolutely top-notch. I was only there a short while and just kind of catching up with people here and there as I was wandering the aisles, but I did manage to catch the Halloween panel, which had Sandy Johnson and Nick Castle, of course, who played Michael in most of the scenes in that film. And then immediately after, there was a Monster Squad reunion. It was a lot of fun. Monster Squad is a cornerstone film for me, and it was a thrill to see all those folks back on stage together, sharing their memories from that production. Overall, just really kudos to the folks behind Nightmare Weekend, and if it happens to come back to Iowa next year, or if they happen into your area of the country, because it looks like they have a number of shows all over the place, I really recommend you check it out, because they invest a lot in their talent that shows up. They're celebrity guests, and they treat them very well. They bring in a real variety of vendors from anime to horror and beyond. They have photo ops and all the customary elements that we've all gotten used to at these kinds of conventions. But above and beyond all of that, they run a very tight ship and treat everyone who shows up with absolute respect. 10 out of 10. Nightmare Weekend in Iowa. On Sunday, I made a pilgrimage back to Des Moines to a place that was sacred to me as a kid. This is Adventureland. A sort of, I guess if you're comparing it to Six Flags, it's a smaller footprint type amusement park. But I remember in my child's eye this place being absolutely massive. There's no way to do it all in one day. For the months of September and October, they now convert the entire park into a haunted attraction with a bunch of different individual zones that have different themes, as well as most all of their at least adult-themed rides, like their roller coasters and a lot of that stuff. So got to go there. They had smoke machines all over the park, which really added to the ambiance and created tremendous opportunities to take some photos. And they had most of the fun stuff running, which was great. But of course, the haunts were what it was all about. They had a zone that was like a swamp. They had a clown zone. They had one that was based off of Alice in Wonderland called Malice in Wonderland. They had one that was all sort of backwoods folks, people with pig masks on, sporting chainsaws and stuff. Oh my God, it was so fun. I can't recommend this one enough either. This is Adventureland in Altoona, Iowa. If you're anywhere in the region, please do check it out. But of course, also support your local haunts. There are great independent entities out there in towns small to large, putting all kinds of time, blood, sweat, tears into presenting you with an exciting environment. These local haunts are the backbone of the industry, if you want to call it that. I remember back in the day, Fangoria for some time used to do an annual haunt review magazine that would have a listing of all of them in your area. Maybe go to Facebook under events and see what may be going on near you. I'm sure there are many other ways to track these kinds of things down, but throughout the month of October, I can't stress enough, support these local artists at these haunts. I have very fond memories of being behind the scenes at a haunt in Bloomington, Illinois, where I lived for some time years ago, and it was an incredible experience, not just creatively, but also interactively. We would really start work in like June, July, aiming for, of course, end of September, early October launch for the event. And by that time, we had things pretty well oiled, but it's a constantly evolving process throughout the season, quote unquote, for these kinds of things, as you're figuring out what resonates with audiences, what's amiss, and you can immediately tell. All it takes is a few groups going through your catacombs and corridors to figure out what is resonating and what isn't, and that was a lot of the fun. Back then, at that haunt, we were doing a lot of air-powered stuff, a lot of effects that were being picked up at different events like the annual convention for haunt folks that happens in Chicago, I think, customarily. So there was a lot of air pressure effects going on, but we also had a lot of interesting elements in play like electrified grates. We had a Freddy segment in there where people, as they were walking through what is ultimately historically an auditorium, of course that comes with a sloped floor, so you're kind of off balance as you were making your way through it. And we had a Freddy underground, kind of in the bowels of a building type area that had an electrified fence, and the folks playing the Freddy character, because it would kind of alternate night to night, they had a glove that would interact with that electricity, creating sparks on this fence as people walked by. Absolutely harmless, of course, but really a dramatic visual effect. Those kinds of creative solutions and ideas are at the heart of your local haunts. So please check them out and support them, because this is the greatest time of the year, and these are the folks that make it special for us. There's a local place here near me where these folks, without any cover charge, put on a haunted attraction in their garage. And it's a must-see for everyone in the area because there's so much poured into it. And every year it's different. They aren't just sort of putting new stuff on the walls. As you make your way through, you can tell, you can pick out the things that are new from year to year, and they do a tremendous job. So, I mean, that's the smallest of small scale, but it's still out there. And what else makes this season special? Right now, there's a theater group near me who's doing a production of the original Carrie musical, which shortly after the film was released was unleashed onto the public. I don't know that it did tremendously well, but it certainly endured over the years, at least in mythology. So that's happening here, and I'm sure there's something near you in a theater group where they're offering something for you to enjoy. And then there's also, of course, the corn mazes and all of the different trunk or treat events that are for families looking to get something a little, maybe if they live in an area where they might not feel so comfortable going door to door anymore, you have the opportunity to still take the kids out, get them dressed up, and go person to person or vendor to vendor, picking up some candy, treats, and toys to really dive into this time of the year and this season. And adults, don't be shy about dressing up. Join your kids. Go all in. Go all out. Get a costume put together, maybe that matches them or something you're interested in. When handing out candy over the years, all too often I see the parents just in a coat standing at the sidewalk, waiting for their kid to run up and grab candy and move on. But man, this is an opportunity for you to connect with your kids in a creative way, come up with something awesome that they will remember forever. And that will further cement this season in a nostalgic way within them, and hopefully they would pass on to their kids and beyond. There's no reason not to really invest in this. Go nuts. This is the time of the year where you can. And if you do end up creating something great, send pictures to me. Send the story. You can call the voicemail that I have set up on this show and tell me about your plans for Halloween, because I'm going to have episodes landing throughout October and would love to hear from you on what you and your family have planned. The number for the voicemail on the podcast, where you can always leave a voicemail message, is 951-357-6955. That's 951-357-6955. I would love to hear from you on how you are celebrating Halloween and October and autumn and all the things that your local area has to provide. And of course, if you have a haunt, if you have some kind of attraction, some kind of event that's coming up throughout the month of October, please hit me up the same. Let me know about it. You can also email me at radiohourpod@gmail.com and let me know. I'll be happy to read your submissions on the air here and help promote whatever you're doing. Today's show is something that I've mulled over for many years, trying to figure out how I wanted to use this material. It is director and producer, composer John Carpenter talking about the entirety of the Halloween franchise, from the original in 1978 through to the sequels. This interview actually was 2 interviews that are poured into this, and they were recorded for what was to be at that time the official Halloween book that I was working on when I was with Trancas Films. At that moment, I was trying to assemble as many interviews as I could for the book about the entire franchise. And of course, the first stop on that journey was with John, who was very courteous and very generous with his time, having 2 extensive conversations about this series of films and his interaction with them. Of course, this predates by many years. I think this was 2012 when I recorded this stuff. So this predates all of the David Gordon Green films. This would have been shortly after Rob Zombie's second Halloween film. So the franchise at this moment where I was talking with John was at a bit of a standstill. No one really knew what was going to be coming next. And you can hear some of that in the discussion, certainly reflected in how we are looking forward to what's next. But I think it's really insightful on a number of fronts. First of all, getting into John's outlook and experience on the original movie, and then also it's rare that he ever is even willing to talk about the sequels. But I caught John at a good time where he was willing to revisit the history of the franchise in full. As you can imagine, throughout time, as they were going sequel to sequel, John was pretty much always contacted. There was the hope from producers and the different directors that John could be brought in some way to be a part of each production. But as you'll hear from him, John says it was a lose-lose proposition for him. He didn't see how any involvement of his could benefit any of these movies because the expectations would simply be too high. Of course, now with hindsight being 2020, we know that he did return with the David Gordon Green films as an executive producer and as a composer. I remember sitting in the theater and watching those movies and looking for the moments in the scripts and the stories that hooked John after he was so clear with me, as you'll hear here, about his lack of interest in returning. And I understood his perspective on the whole thing, because you create something accidentally as massive as Halloween 1978. How do you ever match that again? But everyone kept knocking at his door, wanting to discuss more and look at a continuation of the story that John really felt was wrapped up at the end of the original film. So what you're about to hear is very special. And I mentioned earlier that I have been contemplating how to use this interview because of the fact that the book did fall apart while I was with Trancas, and it did not end up happening in the way that I had hoped. My fingers are firmly crossed at this point about an official book eventually landing, maybe an updated documentary on the history of the franchise. There was Steph Hutchinson's film 25 Years of Terror many moons ago for Anchor Bay. But at that point, I mean, geez, like I just said, there's so much that has happened since then between the comics and the different films that have happened and soundtracks and everything else. It's time for someone or some people to dive into the Halloween franchise and give the fans what they're ultimately looking for. This discussion today is being presented with the full awareness that, man, this Halloween book that I had planned isn't going to happen. It just simply won't. I had hopes over time that it might resurface. I tried repitching it to the relevant entities who may be able to approve such a thing, but I was never interested in writing an unofficial story behind the making of these movies, and so I just held back. And now you get to enjoy this conversation with John in full on the entire Halloween franchise. What better way to kick off the month of October than to sit down with John Carpenter for a couple hours and revel in Halloween. As far as Reverend Entertainment news, I won't bore you again with the full rundown of upcoming releases, just sort of to touch on the recent announcements that have been made. The Scream magazine number 87 is due out at the end of October and is open for pre-order. I have links for everything I'm about to discuss at justinbeahm.com. The Scream 87 is the second part of my Night of the Demons retrospective that covers the first three films. So it was prior to the remake happening, reimagining, whatever you want to call it. But it very thoroughly covers the first three movies, from producers to directors to stars to makeup effects people. It's a wild thing that these pieces in magazine number 86 and 87 are finally hitting print. 86 is on newsstands now. That is the, I think, September-October issue that's out now, and that contains part one of this retrospective, which focuses solely on the original Night of the Demons film. And then the second one, that's going to be in issue 87, covers parts 2 and 3. And there's some crazy stories behind these productions, and I'm just so thrilled that they're finally seeing the light of day. Other recent announcements are Born on the 4th of July from Shout Factory, which is hitting 4K and Blu-ray November 12th. A Simple Plan on 4K and Blu-ray from Arrow Video November 19th. I talked on the last episode about my experience creating all the special features on the Hush 4K from Shout Studios, which lands at the end of November, from Mike Flanagan. A long overdue expanded release of that film that had just been languishing in sort of the backwaters of Netflix for a long time and then disappeared completely. So kudos to Mike for rescuing that movie from the ether and teaming up with Shout Factory for what is a truly grand release. All the interviews, commentaries on there, 2 different versions of the film. You also have 4K and Blu-ray presentations. It's just, it really is something to behold. And also just announced today, actually, as we're recording, is The Gift on 4K and Blu-ray from Shout Studios. This is Sam Raimi's film, The Gift, which, oh my gosh, features an incredible cast, a real cerebral, brilliant script written by Billy Bob Thornton, who was pulling from his own personal experiences to relate this story. It's something to behold, and the new transfer is absolutely gorgeous. That's out December 3rd. Demolition Man has been announced on 4K and Blu-ray from Arrow Video. That's in the States and also in the UK. That has some new special features from me and my Reverend Entertainment. And then the most recent announcement is that Silent Night, Deadly Night is finally hitting Shout Factory 4K and Blu-ray on December 10th. This includes my original documentary called Sleigh Bells Ring, the story of Silent Night, Deadly Night, as well as an audio commentary and location featurette that were part of Shout Factory's previous release of this film on just Blu-ray a few years ago. That was really instrumental in the history of me and Reverend Entertainment. That led to me also doing Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 And I mean, my history with this is rich. Silent Night, Deadly Night is one of the films that I took to Shout Factory. I remember at the time I had stepped away from the business for a hiccup or so, and I got a phone call out of the blue from one of the producers on the film, and they said to me, I mean, I was standing in the atrium at this finance company that I was working for at the time, and you have to imagine, I was spending every moment of every day just sort of watching the clock and thinking about all that I could have been doing creatively while I was in there crunching numbers and completing financial transactions. It was nuts. Completely out of my zone, I guess you could say. So when this call came in, I ran to the lobby, the atrium, and took it. And here was one of the producers of Silent Night, Deadly Night, who was like, Justin, Silent Night is up for renewal at Anchor Bay. We're looking for a new home for it, and we have absolutely no idea where to go. We don't know anything about the market at this point, what the more viable players are in the game, and we need someone that we can trust. And I had at this point worked with this team on a theatrical re-release of Silent Night, Deadly Night, I think maybe a year or two prior, where I was responsible for the media outreach and scheduling and facilitating interviews with different outlets like USA Today and Entertainment Weekly and whatever else when Silent Night was put back into theaters, because it was a tremendously controversial film when it first landed. We were shocked, maybe not shocked, to find that it was still controversial at this time, which was pretty mind-blowing, but there were certainly plenty of people who were interested in talking about it. So anyway, I helped them get the word out about this theatrical re-release, and it did pretty well for its time. And then there was a spell where I was just burned out on the business, stepped away for a minute to focus on family, and then this call landed. And I was excited about the prospect of taking Silent Night, Deadly Night to a new home, which ended up being Shout Factory, now known as Shout Studios. And I was also excited about the prospect of returning to movies, returning to the business. It had been a couple years, very stagnant time for me, and I was more than anxious to get back into the groove again. So we did it. We brought everyone that we could back to the table to do new commentary and interviews for a feature-length documentary, and I couldn't be more happy with how that whole thing turned out. Sleigh Bells Ring, the story of Silent Night, Deadly Night, and this new 4K release that Shout is doing now that is out December 10th, just a few days before my birthday, also includes new bonus features, new interviews, new commentaries, in addition to all the historical material. So it's kind of wild to be part of the historical material archive stuff now. But it has been that long. I think this was maybe, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, that this was originally released. And Shout also did an action figure for this one. And they did an action figure for Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 as well. And there's so many stories behind that production that I've shared a little bit of in the past and will get into in the future again. I hope that Shout will also revisit Silent Night 2 for 4K soon, because I think that is absolutely merited, especially in the wake of this. Now, this new release also has an option of picking up a novelization of the story, which is kind of a unique twist. Horror fans love novelizations. My friend Jim Coons has been working for years with some partners of his on a documentary about the novelization and the whole realm of that. And when you go to his studio, he has an entire wall completely covered in row after row of novelizations of films. And he's trying to be a completist with it. And he certainly is achieving that goal, because there are lots of films in there that I never would have guessed would have merited a novelization approach. Well, here we are, 2024. Silent Night, Deadly Night now has a novelization of its own, and you can pick that up by itself. You can get a package that has the 4K and Blu-ray disc set along with the novelization, or just the movie package itself at shoutfactory.com. But there are details pre-order links, everything else about all the upcoming releases like Shocker, Krampus, the Full Moon box set from Umbrella, Benicio del Toro's Wolfman, the Paramount Scares Volume 2, which lands today, actually, from Paramount and includes Breakdown, which I worked on a few years ago for them, but has now been ported up to 4K. There's just so much stuff at justinbeahm.com. If you click the Coming Soon button up at the top in the menu, you'll be able to hit any of those links for full details on these releases, along with links to pre-order them, so they make sure they end up in your mailbox immediately upon release. On October 11th and 12th, I will be in Ottumwa, Iowa, part of Halloweenapalooza, which is put on by Prescribed Films. It's a convention event that I've been a part of a number of times over the years, and am always blown away by it. It's just like every year it continues to evolve. They're in a great new convention space there as of a couple years ago, and it's equal parts convention and film festival, so there's a lot to offer there. Just search for Halloweenapalooza on your social media or on the web, and you can find out all about the tickets, the film festival lineup, and all the other details regarding what is truly one of Iowa's premier cinematic events every fall, and something that I am tremendously honored to be a part of. This year, I'm going to be presenting a new sort of updated version of the documentary film symposium that I put on this summer for the Snake Alley Festival of Film, which is in Burlington, Iowa, for Tad Good, Nikki Good, and their whole team, which was a lot of fun. But now I've tweaked it, expanded it, and made it into something even more interesting. And I'm talking in that about my experiences on the road through all of these crazy documentary commentary experiences and productions, as well as lending some insight into how to approach this stuff. How do we make an interview work? How do we connect with our interview subjects? And even beyond that, how do we get into the business? How do we find our way into those rooms and put our toe in the door? So I think it's going to be a really insightful panel that'll be happening on Saturday the 12th, but I'm there both days, the 11th and 12th. I'll have a table set up, and I'll also be hosting the Film Festival Awards on that Saturday too. Going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Halloweenapalooza in Ottumwa, Iowa. In addition to those Scream magazine issues that I mentioned, I'm also on the stands this month in the October issue of Morgue. There's a feature in there called the 50 Vilest Villains, and for that I pitched and was able to write little bits on both Big Ronnie from The Greasy Strangler and Jack from The House That Jack Built. I think the Big Ronnie piece, if I remember correctly, once my comp copy showed up, is incorrectly attributed to another writer, but rest assured, that is me, and my eternal love for Greasy Strangler and my quest to get everybody I know to see that movie. So that's on stands right now, as well as Remind Magazine, which of course I have a monthly column in called Roadside Memories, where I explore abandoned and defunct roadside attractions and amusement parks. In this case, I'm talking about in Virginia, a monster museum that was there that grew into an expansive experience, including a dinosaur park and beyond, and has a very complicated, crazy history from point of origin through to where things stand right now. So that's Remind Magazine. Both of those are on newsstands as you're hearing this, and also available through their respective websites. So Remind Magazine, Rue Morgue Magazine, and Scream Magazine. It's crazy that in 2024, after feeling like I haven't really focused a whole lot on writing for the last couple years, I'm somehow in 3 magazines at the same time in the best time of the year. Also on my site, I have the Steve Reverb and the Soundtones CDs on sale for $10 with free shipping. This is the surf rockabilly band that I played drums for a number of years, and one hell of a fun CD. Just $10, free shipping, and I'll be happy to send one directly to you. And if you'd like that personalized in some way, let me know. I'll get you taken care of. Always, if you have any questions, if you have any feedback on my different film productions or the podcast, Please do hit me up via social media. Just search for my name, Justin Beahm, or you can hit justinbeahm.com. There's a contact form on the site where you can reach out to me directly, and I'll be happy to respond. I certainly look forward to any kind of feedback you have on any of these fronts and always enjoy the interaction. So, without further ado here, this is going to be something truly special. I hope you enjoy my exhaustive discussion with John Carpenter on the Halloween franchise. Happy October, everybody. We'll talk to you on the other side of the interview.
The foot bone connected to the ankle bone now.
Did want to touch on a few things here, beginning with you growing up in Bowling Green.
Yep.
Did Bowling Green have a boogeyman?
There are a lot of grade school, preteen, and teenage stories about haunted houses and such. There was always some house that something tragic had happened in. I never heard of one.
Okay.
Never heard of one ever that I could confirm to you.
You've been quoted, actually in 1999 you did an interview, and you said, "Everything I know about evil I learned in that little town."
That's correct.
What were you referring to?
The people. This was the Jim Crow South, my friend. You know what Jim Crow is?
Oh, sure.
All right. It was a pretty bad place. And there was a lot of bad behavior that went on. There's a lot of good behavior, too, but a lot about the blackest hearts of people I learned right in that little town. But that's where I grew up, so I would learn there.
Yeah. Anything specific that really had an impact on you that you witnessed there?
Maybe the way I was treated by some of my fellows, probably had something to do with it.
Picked on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, big time.
Why, were you an awkward kid?
Well, my father forced me to learn to play the violin. And so when you walk to school with a violin under your arm every day.
Oh, boy.
And a bunch of hillbillies standing around, bored, want to pick on somebody. Guess who they pick on?
Yeah.
I wasn't the most athletic person in the world, I played a little basketball, and I loved basketball, but I wasn't great at it. Got picked on. There's some vicious kids, but that's just like, I think, everywhere. But I survived. I didn't kill myself. I made it.
Did you have a band back then?
I did right in high school. I did have a band.
What did you guys play?
Cover songs mainly. We played a lot of fraternity parties, which were fun to watch. Wow. God, do these people drink. Man.
Have you ever gotten into that side of things? I mean, this is off topic, but have you ever given into the, that constant temptation with substances around you and things like that as you were?
Have I ever had a beer? Sure.
Well, a beer, but
several. I've had several.
Yeah.
I smoked marijuana, but that's about as far as it went.
Yeah.
As far as it's gone.
So on Halloween, at the point, where were you? Right before Halloween, where were you, let's say, the 6 months prior to that?
To making of the movie?
As a filmmaker, yeah. Yep.
Well, I just, in January, I believe it was January, I shot a TV movie on a very short schedule for Warner Brothers. So it was my first studio experience. It was called Someone's Watching Me. And it was great. I got to work with a union cameraman, Robert Hauser, somebody I'd admired from the old days. And, got a lot of, it was a tiny budgeted thing, but got a lot of the toys that the studio had to offer. It was a great experience. I worked my buns off on that. And then by the time Halloween came, I was ready to go. I had felt I was feeling like I was hot shit. Oh, yeah, baby, Of course, that worked. That came through ELVIS. That was great. And I just was tooling along, and then through Halloween. Then I hit ELVIS. And wow, that was so much work. I just killed myself for that movie. Hey, God.
How did you end up catching the eye of Warner for Someone's Watching Me?
I had written an original screenplay based on something that happened in the news, a news story about this girl who was stalked in a high-rise building and found out it was somebody in the opposite building watching her, something like that. I can't remember now. I keep asking questions about things I don't remember. And so then I had written a feature film. They didn't want to do it as a feature, but they thought it would be a good TV movie. So then I made it.
You said that initially you met with Irwin and Mustafa on Halloween. How did they first contact you? Did they go through an agent or?
No, Mustafa was a UCLA graduate. He had a lot of money. I was looking to invest in low-budget movies, and he contacted Erwin Yablans. Erwin Yablans had released a film of mine called Assault on Precinct 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to England with Assault on Precinct 13 as part of the British Film Festival. And while I was over there, Erwin Yablans said, I want you to meet this financier who's putting up money for movies. And I said, sure. So I met with Mustafa, whichever one you want. Seemed like a nice man, and he was at Twickenham Studios, had an office there. And so that would have been the year before, I believe. So then the next year, I guess, Mustafa and Erwin had combined forces to make low-budget movies. And this was an idea, Halloween was an idea of Erwin's, Babysitter Murders.
Mm-hmm.
And he could raise, Mustafa Akkad would put up $200,000 to make it. So that's how I got connected with him.
And at that point, was it that cockiness that you mentioned? You felt like you were big shit that prompted you to insist on having your name above the title?
Well, you know, it gave me, I was fearless.
Yeah.
That was the great thing. I mean, I was fearless about it because I was young and stupid. What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything. I didn't know what was to come. But sure, why not?
Do you think that fearlessness and that sort of ignorance is what leads a lot of filmmakers and a lot of artists to, I guess, create such great work early on in their careers when they're...
If part of it's confidence,
mm-hmm.
part of it is confidence, and yeah, part of it is just, you know, I was impassioned about movies. I love movies, and I wanted to make movies. I wanted to be a director, and finally, after years of struggling since about 75, finally, years of struggling, it's 3 or 4 years, but now I look back and say, well, you know, what am I talking about? It's been a lifetime then.
Yeah.
But now things are starting to pay off. I was starting to get jobs,
mm-hmm.
which was great. That's what I wanted. I mean, that was my dream, to become a professional movie director. So you feel good about oneself when one gets money.
Sure.
For projects.
Were you offered anything else in that interim time?
I was offered a lot of things that didn't work. You know, that didn't pay off. That didn't come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting projects. Don't ask me to name them now because I do not remember.
No, that's okay.
But sure. And I had the feeling, more importantly than anything, I had the feeling something's going to happen here, you know. Something good is going to happen out of all this. Mm. So that was why the Hot Shit Express showed up.
So on Halloween, when you were brought in, did they approach you wanting you just to direct, or did they say, well, we also need a writer?
No, it's write and direct.
Okay.
It's always write and direct.
Right. And what was your process like for writing? I mean, you were young, you were full of all this energy and confidence and everything. What was your mode?
Well, I sat down with Deborah Hill, and she wrote, we talked about it, kind of outlined it, and she wrote the first pass at it, and then I did a final pass at it.
She has said in years since that she just kind of contributed dialogue for the girls, but she did the...
No.
Okay.
No, she did more than that. She did more than that. She got a job. She strung together a basic movie idea, and out of things that we had discussed. I said, well, let's do this and this and this. And then I went back and just fleshed it all out. But, no, she did a bunch.
What was your relationship like with her at the time?
We were living together. Other than that, what do you want to know?
Well, were you creative partners in other ways too, or is this like your big opportunity to really?
Well, I had worked with her on. I had worked with her on an assault.
Yeah.
As a script supervisor, so I knew her that way.
Okay. Were you comfortable writing for the girls in the script, or was that something that you did rely on her for a little?
I was all right with that. I could do that.
Okay. Laurie, you said that Laurie is similar to the Shape. Can you elaborate?
I said that? What the fuck was I talking about?
I don't know, John. Why do you always pull stuff out of your ass?
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about, nor do I have any idea what I was talking about, so there.
You had mentioned that she was...
Oh, she was isolated. I know what I was talking about, sure.
Yeah.
She was different from the other kids her age. She was isolated from others her age. She was shy. She was kind of a tomboy and didn't fit in, and only wanted to fit in and wanted to be, a popular girl, wanted to be liked like every other person in the world. And so I think that's why I saw a connection, because she's on the outside, an outsider, an isolated human being, and so is Michael Myers.
Is there any of you in Laurie?
It's me in every character.
Who is Loomis based on?
Oh, who is he based on? The storyteller, Avenger storyteller. Storyteller Avenger who comes in to deliver certain plot points and colorful dialogue about the danger that everyone is facing.
Mm-hmm. With Michael, at the time he wasn't Michael. He was referred to as the Shape. What's the origin of the reference, the Shape?
I don't really know, other than the fact that I wanted to make it obscure. It's just a human shape. Mm-hmm. It's outline of a person, but he wore a gas station attendant's uniform and a mask, so it wouldn't have any clothing characteristics or facial characteristics. Mm-hmm. It's a shape, something you could project your feelings into.
And you from the beginning you were writing this so the audience could project into him and into the characters?
Yes.
Go ahead.
When you have Donald Pleasance as the Avenger storyteller coming around and talking about him in this florid language, and he is the embodiment of evil or whatever he says, mm-hmm. Then that triggers your projection onto the Shape.
Was there a Loomis kind of who was the guardian figure in your life when you were coming up?
I guess my father.
Yeah.
My parents, sure.
Did you ever? What kind of consideration did you put into the psychology of the Shape in the film? Did you see him as a sort of a man-child, or how did you see him?
I have no idea. He was not a human being in many ways. He was, of course, but my idea was to blur the line between the natural and supernatural.
you had in mind first Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, either one of them to play Loomis.
Right. I wanted to play the psychiatrist. Yeah, they both turned me down. They couldn't be bothered with this little movie.
Was that it? It was the budget. It was the scope of it.
It was not important enough. Peter Cushing's agent said, this was after Star Wars had come out, and said, of course we're not going to make your little movie because they're making movies about him now, meaning Peter Cushing. He wasn't going to play second fiddle to some idiot, so put me back in my place.
Wow. And Christopher Lee, what was do you remember the response there?
I don't remember. There wasn't enough money in it for him, which is usually the story.
Yeah. And you bumped into him later and he told you something about
I've talked with him several times, sure.
And he mentioned regret? Well,
I think he confuses The Fog and Halloween. I'm not sure. But I grew up with these guys. They're really influential. When I was 9 years old, I saw Curse of Frankenstein, the first Hammer.
Yeah.
And they blew me away. My head exploded. So they were heroes of mine.
Mm-hmm. And Donald, what was your experience or your history with Donald before you?
Just loving him as an actor, but he was somebody I hadn't thought of until Erwin Yablans called me up and said, we ought to put somebody in this that maybe some of the audience recognizes. He said, we'll go through the Daily Variety and see some character actor who's working, Then he suggested Donald Pleasance, and I hadn't thought of it before. Because Donald has played everything from Blofeld in the James Bond movie to this sympathetic, blind counterfeiter in Great Escape to his brilliant performance in Cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And also in Fantastic Voyages, the evil saboteur. So, but I hadn't thought of him, and it was a great choice. It was a great choice on Erwin's part because he brought his own unique interpretation of this character. I have one personal moment in the movie where Donald is on his way to Haddonfield. He's driving and he's out in the middle of nowhere and he's on a payphone. And originally, as written, he was talking to his wife. And there was a moment of tenderness there. Pray for me. I hope I'm okay. I hope I'm not too late. Something along those lines. I can't remember. And Donald says, "Don't let me say this." So he said something like, "Well, if you don't, it's your funeral," or something like that, as if he was talking ahead to the police department. So
yeah.
So interesting.
So he kind of made
He didn't want any kind of backstory. Any kind of softening of this character.
Interesting.
I don't know why. I don't know.
You said that you were almost scared of him when you were working with him.
Yeah. Terrified, of course.
Because of his stature?
Because it's one of my acting heroes, and this was a time when I didn't have an enormous amount of experience with actors.
Mm-hmm.
And I was frightened of them because they were like magical beings to me. They possessed some sort of magic, and I was supposed to unlock that magic. And I didn't understand the whole process until much later in my life.
Yeah. You said that he tested you.
Constantly. The first test was when I met him for lunch, and he'd come into town to make the movie. And he said, "I don't know why I'm making this film." Which, you understand, is completely terrified. And he says, "I don't understand it. I don't understand this character. But my daughter in England is into rock and roll. She's in a rock and roll band. And she says your score for Assault on Precinct 13 was great, so that's why I'm doing it." Mm-hmm. Which left me totally confused. But later, he told me, one of these nights where we were shooting late, and his trailer was out there, and, it was raining. He said, don't ask too many questions. I have to pay a lot of alimony. So I think that last was probably the truth. But he made me, even after Halloween became successful on Escape from New York, he made me write him a letter telling him why I wanted him to be the president of the United States in Escape from New York.
Really?
Yes. So it was the same thing. He just wanted to know that I wanted him and I loved him. That's an actor. That's just an actor. That's okay.
Yeah.
So I did, and he did.
What did you tell him for why you wanted him as the president?
I was looking. I thought of his brilliant performance in Cul-de-Sac and the kind of character that he played, and I thought that he'd be perfect for the president because he's also a man who's tortured. Some bullshit like that. Anyway, he bought it.
Oh, that's funny. He mentioned in an interview once that he did have a hard time connecting with the character. How did you?
I have no idea what he's talking about.
Really?
He's so prepared when he came in. Well, these florid lines. I mean, he was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And he just connecting with the character. Please, he could do this in his sleep.
Yeah. How else did he test you? What other things was he doing?
Actually, we had a great working relationship, and I think that's why. Absolutely no problems on the set. As a matter of fact, he was, the story. I think I've told it. You probably heard it. He said, "I can play this last scene." When he looks down and sees that the shape, who he has shot off the balcony, is gone. Was on the grass, but has disappeared. He said, "I can play this two ways. I can play this, I knew this would happen, or, oh my God." So I thought, well, can you do both for me? And I could choose later. So he did. And I chose, I knew this would happen.
Mm-hmm.
They're just scarier.
Yeah. Do you think that have you taken to testing the people that you work with and the people that you are involved with professionally?
No, you have to beg actors to be in your movies. You have to flatter them and love them. And what I do is I just mercilessly tease them. Try to find something that we can laugh about and tease.
Yeah.
And just lighten the moment. I probably teased too much. I teased Amber Heard all the way through shooting the award. Mercilessly. That was so much fun.
Laurie Strode was originally going to be Annie Lockhart?
That's who I wanted. Was that the actress from Jaws 2?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And do you remember what happened with that? If you approached her at all?
No.
Or?
She said no.
Okay.
No way.
That simple.
No. Pass is the Hollywood word for it. Pass. Her agent wasn't as cruel as Peter Cushing's agent, but it's the same result. El Paso.
Yeah. What do you remember being the most striking thing about Jamie when you met her, when she came in to read?
Just her whole manner, the way she looked, but her I mean, she just fit right into the character. And Deborah was in love with the idea of, oh, this is Janet Leigh's daughter.
Yeah.
We can hook into Psycho, and let's see if she can act. And she was delightful. Just absolutely delightful.
Did she have that same kind of confidence that she's famous for now? Did she walk in with that?
No. She didn't walk in with it. She was like every other actor at the beginning of their career. And every actor is terrified of rejection.
Yeah.
So all this stuff is an act. You have to understand. No actor wants to be rejected. So confidence, fuck that. They're all scared.
Jamie Lee read for the role, and
yes.
Was it right away that you knew, or?
Yeah, when I saw her sitting there, it's great.
It was. You were okay.
She was great. She had a nice little sings a lilt to her voice, a nice little melodic tone in her voice.
In terms of some other cast members here, P.J. Soles.
Yeah.
At the time was, she had become this cult sort of icon, through the 70s. And did she come in and?
I didn't know that.
Well,
I saw her. I remember seeing her in Carrie, and I thought she was really good.
Okay.
And she decided. She said yes.
So you approached her.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nancy Loomis.
She was married to the editor/production designer.
Mm-hmm.
My best friend from high school, Tommy Lee Wallace.
Chuck
and
Cypher.
I had worked with her before. I'd worked with her in Assault on Precinct 13. So I thought she was really a fine actress.
Yeah. Charles Cyphers?
Hey, where had I met Chuck? On Assault on Precinct 13.
So you like to work with you like to sort of build a family?
At that point I did. At that point it was very comforting.
Yeah.
And I knew what they give.
Was it confidence in the people, or is it like a security blanket for you as an early filmmaker?
Confidence in the actors that the roles they were going to play would be full and would be perfect. A lot of times in movies you write these thankless roles, secondary characters,
mm-hmm.
and so you need to go to somebody who can bring it.
Yeah.
Depend on.
Little Brian Andrews is Tommy Doyle.
Yeah.
Was there how much of that character was out of your childhood? The kid with the comic books under the couch and.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And wanted to watch horror movies on TV. Sure. Hell yes. And I'll have you know that the televised broadcast of those movies, I believe it's Forbidden Planet and The Thing. I can't remember what other ones were on the TV. I had to provide the then 3/4-inch video cassette recorder playback and the 3/4-inch tapes to play on there. For my own collection, I'll have you know. And for nothing. I didn't get any credit for being the technician who hooked it up.
You're owed money.
But no, I don't think so.
No. Robert Phelan as Dr. Wynn, a relatively small role, but did you know Robert from before?
I am. I'm trying to remember which one he was. Was it when they were arguing at the hospital?
Yeah, out in front.
I don't remember where he came from. Don't remember. Nor do I remember who the cemetery keeper was.
Yeah.
I liked him. I thought he was real good, but I don't remember where he came from. From the mists, the fog of time.
Yeah. And then Nick Castle. Did you have guys come in and read for the shape, did you?
No. Well, he's a buddy from film school.
Okay.
And I've known him since the late 60s. So he was not doing anything. And his father was a dance choreographer. So I knew that he knew about movement. And I just wanted something very simple. I also didn't want somebody big or muscular or too small. He had to be just sort of nondescript. He was a shape. It wasn't specific.
And that predates the days of the massive psycho killer and all of that, like Jason, these big hulking things.
Yeah, and what's his name? Rob Zombie did in his remake, which was make it a giant guy. God, it's big.
Yeah. The mask, obviously, it's William Shatner, et cetera. But do you remember where it came from? Was it just?
Yeah, it was purchased at Burt Wheeler's Burt Wheeler's costume shop on Hollywood Boulevard.
Okay. Along with
Hollywood Magic. I can't remember the exact name of it.
And that was along with a few other options.
That was the clown option. Yeah.
So there was two masks that you.
Just we were low budget, dude. Come on now.
Yeah. And the Michael mask was modified. When you first looked at it, was it just the Shatner mask?
No, it had been modified. It had been modified.
And how much input did you have on the modifications that were made?
None. Zero. I just thought, oh, that's it. There it is. There it is, right there. Just like it was written. That's great.
In the film, how many people actually ended up playing Michael?
Oh, God, I can't remember. Well, it was Nick for most of the movie, Nick Castle.
Mm-hmm.
Connie Lee Wallace played him in one part is because he was production designer and art director, and he had built the breakaway closet,
mm-hmm.
and we were frightened that somebody else might fuck it up, the scene, so he knew how it broke, so he broke through. And then she stabs him in the eye, and he jumps out. That one little sequence from inside the closet, he played there. Tony Moran's played it for about 30 seconds. Just 3. Was there another? Can't remember.
Tony Moran has been doing the convention circuit for years as Michael Myers.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
There's another guy out there, and I can't remember his name. He's also started doing conventions claiming to be Michael who fell off the balcony.
Oh, the stuntman.
Yeah.
He's in the credits.
You and Dean Cundy working together on the film. What was your history with Dean?
I'd never worked with him before. Deborah had worked with him on several low-budget films and said he was, he just had a lot of talent,
mm-hmm.
which he did. I had seen a short film he made at UCLA called Cold Sun. It was very impressive. He shot it, I think. It was a short made for some class there, and it was in black and white and widescreen. And I thought, wow, look at that.
What were your early meetings with him like on the production?
Well, we went to see, I remember he and I went to see Chinatown together because of the light in Chinatown, and this kind of golden L.A. light. We're going to shoot in L.A., so I said, let's look at this, not for the story or for the production design, but the way they shot it. It was just beautiful light in that movie.
And you ended up, with the look of Halloween is a lot of blues and whites and blacks.
At night, yeah.
Were you trying to almost go for noir there, or what was your...
No, blue backlight for the moon.
Mm-hmm. And Dean had been... Did he come in with the Panaglide experience?
No. So we both trekked out to Panavision in the valley when it was there. We both tried the Panaglide on. Oy!
Yeah.
Didn't get that thing off me fast enough. It's a killer. But the lenses are so huge. They're giant pieces of glass, the Panavision lenses. The anamorphic lenses. Oh my God, a killer.
What had you seen that turned you on to Panavision?
Oh, I saw it since I grew up. It was just the widescreen format. I just had to make a movie in it. And fell in love with it. And
the Panaglide Steadicam?
Well, it takes a little bit of time to set up a dolly track, and it's limited. It can't very well go around corners. It can, but it looks like shit.
Yeah.
So with a Panaglide, can do anything. It can run across the street and go upstairs. Run down ramps. So suddenly you have the sensation of a dolly instead of handheld. That's just don't hate it, but it's not my favorite. You have a sensation of dolly movement, but you're not just limited to the dolly.
Mm-hmm. You're famous for the use of the entire frame in your films. That's sort of what some people attribute being big part of the John Carpenter look is. And when you were doing something like Halloween, and you were shooting in actual houses, and so you didn't have the luxury of a lot of like pull-away walls and things like that. Did you find it to be a challenge to fill the screen the way that you were seeing, or no?
Yeah, wide lenses, low, get as far away from it in walls as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Have as much space as you can there. Don't shoot against a wall if you can help it. Possibly help it.
the crew you kept small, I assume, more as a result of financial considerations.
That's correct.
Yeah. What did the production look like if someone were to come upon Halloween as it was shooting? Was it
bunch of hippies standing around in a truck, pulling out lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was shooting so close to busy streets, like especially with the houses near your office now?
Yeah.
Was that a challenge shooting so close? Because I mean, when I visited the first time, I couldn't believe how close it was to the sunset.
Yeah. But and I don't ever remember it being a problem. Any location. It was a little noisy there. We shot in South Pasadena, the old abandoned house in South Pass. Shot the girls walking down the street, and the high school was in Alhambra. The girls were walking down that tree-lined street in South Pasadena. And we were on the street corner where Loomis meets the Chuck Cypher's character, the sheriff. They meet on the street, and a car drives by or something like that. That was a little noisy, but not bad.
Yeah.
It was rush hour.
There is footage that actually has surfaced. I'm sure you're aware of this. That this guy bought a container, and I'm not sure if it was Joe Wolf's or whose it was, but there's an uncut version of Halloween in it that has an additional, I want to say, I think he said something like 9 minutes or something like that in it.
I have no idea what he's talking about. My guess is they're talking about this material I shot for the TV version.
Well, this has
Go ahead.
this has Michael getting up in the yard at the end.
Oh, no, that's outtakes. Yeah, I know what that is.
Okay.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's when basically you do a shot of Nick lies there, right? And I tell him, like, get up and walk away. So we have an empty frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, being the character that I am, I said, I want you to dance away. So he got up and started dancing like this sort of Broadway musical off frame. Then I had him come back on, dance back on again, and then back off again.
And again, most of the big things that you've done a good job of sharing over the years, and it's amazing how patient you've been with questions about Halloween over all this time. So I'm glad we get a chance to talk about it one more time here. One of the things that I do want to talk to you about that I haven't heard much on is the music for the film.
Yeah.
And you came into it with, all your life you've been playing music. Were you initially going to do the score for this, or was it a convenience thing?
I was initially going to do it because, cheap and fast. I kind of could do it all by using a synth. Mm-hmm. And I had worked with Dan Wyman, who was he taught a synthesizer at USC. So they hooked me up with him for Assault on the Precinct 13. So I went right back to him. Because I remember I had 3 days on Halloween. 3 days? 3 days.
Wow.
So the first task was to do a couple versions of that main title theme that you hear.
Mm-hmm.
To play it first on the piano that was there, and then add synth parts after the beginning and then end titles. I remember. And so we didn't score the film per se. I laid out, I remember, 4 or 5 pieces to add anywhere in the movie I felt like it. Different sort of mood pieces. So then I did that for the rest of the time. It was on quarter-inch tape. Had it transferred and cut it in.
What were you playing at the time? Was that a Prophet?
God, I don't remember. But I think it was tuned. There were tuned amps. Yeah, there were tube amps that with individual cabinets, little modules that he would tune up. I don't remember.
Were there any... Well, you had said that when you first played the film, I think it was for an executive or something, without music, that there was an unfavorable response to it.
Well, the executive said that the movies like this don't scare me. There's nothing scary about this. And so...
Then the music was added, and...
Later, this executive called me in for a meeting, for a project. It was very nice. And said, boy, was I wrong. but very nice. I mean, there's nothing. You never like to hear that.
Yeah.
From anybody.
Yeah.
But that's the way it goes.
And when you went back to shoot the television footage,
Hey.
Yeah.
Well, it was several years on from the movie. So Jamie Lee had changed. She was not the happy-go-lucky teenager anymore. And I had changed, and I just didn't want to do it, so I shot a bunch of boring footage.
Was Loomis...
I remember Erwin Yablon's comment after we shot it and cut it in. He said, well, this proves what I believe, is giving filmmaker more money doesn't make the movie better. I know. But I did it because they wanted, there was a big payday for everybody for NBC to show it on. But they had a time requirement.
Mm-hmm.
And we were 88 minutes or whatever we were. Don't remember now. So we had to make it at least, had to add a couple of minutes or something like that. I don't remember the times exactly now.
And you had written Halloween 2 by this point, of course.
Yeah.
And so you decided to make the additional footage tie into 2.
Well, yeah, and it was shot with Dean and his crew at the end of shooting of Halloween 2. So they had just wrapped Halloween 2, and then like the next day, the crew came back and we shot, footage of the girls and Donald and blah 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 blah, whatever bullshit was that I shot. It was not very good. I mean, I have to admit, I was sleepwalking through this. Didn't want to do it.
Do you have any idea who the kid was who played young Michael in that footage?
Oh, man.
He's been kind of lost to the sands of time.
Come on now. I don't remember.
All right.
Please.
And then the film played on television, and it was actually, not that common for these horror films, especially like Halloween, to make their way onto television like that. What was the response to it?
I have no idea. You have to understand, through most of my career, no one has told me anything. I have no idea. No one calls up and says, oh, we didn't do very well. Oh, we did great. I never hear. So.
Do you feel like, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about being kept outside of your own career in that way?
Well, I don't know. The movie's what I'm responsible for. And, I don't know what to say about it. It's just the way it's kind of always been.
It's kind of like the guy who has the hot rod but never gets to see it go down the street.
That's exactly it. I feel like Lovecraft's outsider. I feel like I'll walk up to a mirror and there'll be this horrible figure staring back at me.
Over time, how has your perspective on the whole thing changed? Has it evolved? Are you still as much a fan of cinema as you always have been?
Oh, God, yeah. I'm still in love with it.
Yeah?
Yeah. And I'm appreciative of movies even more now. Having made my own and see what goes into them. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have quite the energy I did when we were talking earlier about, all you needed in those days was a pair of good shoes and a cup of coffee, and you're ready to go for 20 hours. But boy, I can't do that now.
Yeah.
Hey, God.
What's your favorite film that you've ever made?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe The Thing. Maybe.
The one that almost killed you.
It did. It did. Destroyed my career.
Yeah.
Sent me into exile on Main Street.
In the months following the success of the original of Halloween, what was happening to you during that time? Were you being offered a bunch of genre projects?
Well, right after we finished Halloween, I was working on a movie on ELVIS, on this 3-hour TV movie, which I really wanted to do. It was just a different thing for me. and I was really excited about it. And I had no idea about Halloween success. It was unclear. I remember shooting ELVIS on location, and I got a call from Deborah Hill, and she said, "Oh, well, you know, we're not doing too well. The reviews are bad. I guess it just didn't work." So it was just kind of depressing. And some of the reviews were just awful. I remember one said Carpenter is not gifted with actors, and just stuff like this. And I thought, oh, okay. As somehow during that shoot, I got a visit from the head of Avco Embassy. That was an independent at the time in Hollywood. And he wanted to make me a 2-picture deal. I thought, what the hell is this? What's changed here? Because they only want to make deals with you when you make money. So then I began to slowly find out that we were making some bucks. And then the critical acclaim came back with the Village Voice review and Roger Ebert's review. So by the next year, things had gotten better. So initially afterwards, I thought it was El Bomo.
And you had, so just as an aside, the Elvis Project, that was a film that you had been wanting to make for quite some time?
Not for quite some time. It came to me. This was a project that nobody else in Hollywood wanted to make. They were afraid of it. They were afraid of who's going to play Elvis, how was it going to be any good, this kind of thing. And
it was so soon yet at that point still.
And, he had just died the year before.
Mm-hmm.
So I was stupid enough to take it. Nothing scared me then. Because I didn't have anything to lose, and I was still trying to make a mark. And off we went. So it worked out all right. I mean, Elvis got pretty good reviews. It won the night, and I got to meet Kurt Russell. So I was happy with it. But boy, that was a baptism of fire, that movie. Oy!
Really?
Lord God, I worked hard on that. I don't think I've ever worked as hard.
What made it such a challenge?
Well, it was 3 hours of television in 30 days. And it's just the amount of how quickly you had to do it. I mean, there's just no time.
Yeah.
So,
and you were in Memphis or in Nashville.
Well, we went to Memphis. We didn't do any filming there. But yeah, so we were at the Grand Ole Opry, and it was a lot of fun, but hard work. Man, I was just shooting as fast as I could to get that thing done. And it was a huge, enormous, just physical challenge, and we got it done.
The disc that came out last year with that is gorgeous.
Is it? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it looks fabulous, and
good.
So I'm really glad that finally saw the light of day. As a big Elvis fan myself, it was.
Oh yeah, and I grew up with him, and this was a pretty, it wasn't a stupid tribute.
Right.
It was actually about him and the goods and bads of it, and so I thought it was good, and Kurt was just amazing in it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Kurt would have been a good choice for Jim Morrison for that.
Oh hell yes, we talked about it during that time.
Really?
Oh yeah, we talked about how great he would have been.
Oh.
And but it just wasn't in the cards. So.
Yeah, he's incredible. So that also brings up Escape from New York. Now, in the timeline of the Halloween 2 Escape from New York thing, Escape came first, right?
Oh, when did Halloween 2 hit? Now I was making The Thing when that was happening.
Okay.
So The Fog, in between Halloween and The Thing, were The Fog and Escape from New York.
Right. Okay. Then
Halloween 2 came about. I'm trying to remember where I was when we were talking about it. I believe that was during the time when I was making The Thing. I believe. That's my memory.
Yeah, it has the release dates. Escape and Halloween 2 both came out in 81, and then The Thing
Halloween 2 came out in 81. Well, there you go. It
yeah.
Must have been Halloween 2. I mean, it must have been Escape.
Escape. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're always right. I should just listen to you.
So, when were you first approached about Halloween 2? Because I remember you saying that you were not interested in
I didn't
doing
want
it.
to direct it. I mean, I just sort of did everything I thought I should have done or could have done on that first one. And I didn't have anything else to say. I didn't think there was any story. But, they wanted more money.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote it, and it was a miserable experience. I didn't do a very good job with it, writing it. But we finished it, and Rick Rosenthal directed it, and it was released.
Did Irwin first approach you about the project, or who was it?
I cannot remember who did. I cannot remember that.
When you first heard, do you remember your conversations with Deborah about the possibility in the project? I mean,
well, the thing is, I was told, and this is, you can't stop somebody from making money. In other words, the people who financed and released Halloween wanted a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing I can do about it. They get to do what they want. I can't stop them from making it.
Sure.
So I thought, well, okay, if I can't stop them, maybe I can collect some coinage, and go along with it, and maybe write a story. So I decided to write the night after kind of thing.
What potential did you see in following it up? Did you see a chance to?
None creatively. The chance to get some money.
Okay.
It was just not a movie that just said, it wasn't like Godfather 2. Oh boy, there's more of a story here and some great performances we can do,
mm-hmm.
and great exploration of these characters. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
It was all financial on everybody's part. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Sure. What key elements did you want to retain from the original when you were writing the script?
It just had to be scary, and it had to be about, again, the day after.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to Laurie Strode, and the town, and thus and so. And boy, by that time I just wasn't interested in doing something like this. But you know what? We did. It's not my proudest moment as a filmmaker. But I didn't have to direct it, which was a nice, wonderful thing.
Yeah. With the original, Deborah has said that she kind of contributed the girls' dialogue more than anything else. What was the writing process like with her on the second? Because you're both credited as co-writing it. And did she play more of a role?
No, she didn't do anything.
Okay.
I wrote the whole thing.
Okay. Maybe the biggest turning point in the series was the decision to link Michael to Laurie as brother and sister. How did you come at this, and why did you feel it necessary to explain his motivation after the first film being very anonymous?
And you're asking questions that I don't have answers for. There is no reason to explain anything after the first one. The first one should stand on its own and have nothing and be the end. But you want a sequel, so we have to deepen this thing. So I thought, okay, well, let's do some link between the two. I mean, that makes the most sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the direction we went. I still don't think it's a great idea, but that's what happened.
Were you well, I guess at the time, if it was just financial, you probably didn't have much concern about what that angle may result in, or any consideration for anything further down the road, right?
No. You got to realize this is a different era.
Yeah.
No one's thinking about sequels and doing any more of this crap. Let's stop this.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that'd be the end of it. We'd do a sequel, and I'll pick up some coins. But they wanted to keep going. And everybody wants something that makes them a lot of money. You know the story.
Yeah, right.
So that's all the motivation. I tried something with Halloween 3. I thought, well, let's do a different story. And actually, this came from a conversation I had with Joe Dante. I approached him. I said, well, you want to direct Halloween 3? And he said, well, Nigel Neal's in town working on something, and he may have a good story. So let's talk to him. So we did, and he had the story for Halloween 3, and I said, well, that's interesting. I could live with that. But Joe did not want to direct it after that for some bizarre reason, so we moved on. But it was just an idea,
In part 2, because she's alone for most of the film, Laurie has very few lines, and actually I saw on a fan message board where they had totaled up 17 total lines for her in the whole film. Most of them are about 4 or 5 lines long. Was it a challenge to write a film around a lead who is basically silent the entire time? I mean, it sort of forced it into becoming sort of an ensemble film with all the rest of these characters becoming the focus. Was it
a challenge? Dude, the whole thing was a challenge. I sat down with a 6-pack of beer to write this fucking thing. There were no ideas anymore on that story. That was Halloween should have been a one-off, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Period. There's nothing more to it. It was a little simple ghost story. It was a little monster movie. It was a little horror film, and that's what made it work so well. It was a little spooky, ooh, boo, great, but we had to do something. I don't know. You're asking good questions. I just don't have any answers for you.
No, and I totally respect that. I really do. What I want to do with the book is I want to at least try to address anything, and I'm totally on board with where you are coming from the standpoint that you are with it. But there are some things that fans discuss ad nauseum. I mean, it's amazing the depth that these folks go into in exploring every aspect in these films, and so I apologize for the sort of repetitious.
That's okay, but I don't mind. I may not have answers for you.
Sure.
Because I'm not a rabid fan of the other movies. I sort of stopped watching them after a while. It's like, hey, because he's turned into Michael Myers has turned into so many different things, different characters over the years. He's not the same one we started with.
Yeah.
And it's too bad.
And the second one actually is kind of when that began.
Yeah,
because
it did.
It wasn't
the same actor playing Michael Myers.
Right.
It wasn't Nick Castle.
Right.
It was a stuntman. Well, very good stuntman, Dick Warlock, but it just wasn't the same. So that's where he turned into this, what he became. That's too bad, isn't it? It's just too bad.
What motivated the change from...
Dude, I didn't direct that movie. I don't know. He was the same character. I wrote the same character. He just didn't turn out that way.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because the violence has stepped up so considerably between the first and the second, and so I was curious about that transition. So that was...
Well, the violence was stepped up because of all the movies that came in between. We had to juice it up a little bit. And I wasn't directing it.
Right.
So I can't answer for it. I can't speak for it.
Sure.
I can't defend it.
Yep.
And I was responsible for it. It's just a terrible situation.
Did the original script differ much from what ended up on screen?
It was pretty much the same.
Okay.
Pretty much the same.
This time around you had studio backing from the start, as well as,
It was an independent film. It was just released by the studio.
Okay.
So it was an independent. It was another little film, but it was released by Universal. Dino De Laurentiis was the, sort of producer, the foreign end of it, and so, but it was not a studio movie. When you say studio backing, we had a lot more money than we had for the first one.
That's what I should have said.
Yeah, it was not a studio movie. Yeah, it was just the same bunch of bums out there trying to make a film, in Hollywood. Me, and I'm the ultimate bum, so I'm not putting anybody down.
Tommy Lee Wallace was your first choice to direct, right?
Yeah. And he didn't want to do it, so I moved on.
Why were you wanting to tap him for that?
Well, he was a friend of mine. He and I were been friends since grade school.
Mm.
Played a band together in Bowling Green, and he was a graphic artist. He came out and studied movies at SC, and That's just a good friend. So I want to give him a shot. And he didn't want to do the second Halloween. I'm not quite sure why. So it just went on to somebody else.
How did you come across Rick?
Through my agent at the time. He had signed Rick, and I saw Rick's short film, and I thought it was interesting.
What was his short?
I can't remember now, man.
Okay.
Questions about years ago. I'm an old guy now. I can barely remember what I did yesterday.
When Rick came on, did he help restructure anything in pre-production, or did he just sort of walk in, take the script, and you guys marched forward?
You know what? I was so not involved in production at all.
Oh, okay.
No, I was. I wrote the script. That's all I did. I did nothing.
Oh, okay.
Deborah shepherded this thing through.
Okay. So you were more of I know producers can be hands-on or hands-off, and
I was one of those asshole producers who does nothing, and collects money, which is a job I've wanted all my life, is to do nothing and get money for it.
And get money, sure.
I mean, that's the dream, right?
Same thing you said about the comics.
Oh, hell yes. Oh, anything. I'll do anything. If I don't have to do anything and get money, my God, what a world.
So did you have anything to do with bringing Jamie and Donald back on board?
Well, they all came on board. No, that was what it was. It was the movie was being made while I was in prep for the thing. That's what it was. I remember.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So did you interact with Jamie about bringing her on board, or was that?
I didn't say much. I just say, "How you guys doing? Let's do this one."
Okay. So, considering that you weren't really involved, I can skip over a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, it's so great, isn't it?
Deborah told Fango that you guys had complete creative control over the process, which included keeping Irwin offset.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
That may be true, but I don't know.
All right.
I honestly don't know.
I was just curious why that was important. And
well, there are a lot of personalities in movies. I don't know. Or everybody wanted Halloween. Irwin said to me when I wrote the script, he said, "This isn't scary at all. There's nothing scary about this." And of course, when it became successful, everybody's the father of this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I got Carpenter in there. I did this. I did that. That's just typical. So I don't know what happened with Irwin and Deborah. I just don't know. Other than she didn't like him.
Okay. Were you looking at dailies or anything throughout the process?
No, hell no. I was busy, dude.
So you were completely okay. It has been said. Well, let me ask this question: in your script, your ending?
It has been said.
It has been said.
I want to hear this.
Yeah, it has been said that when production was finished, you went back and reshot some footage because you were unhappy with what Rick did. That is correct.
Now, I didn't reshoot footage, but the movie only had to be one thing, and that's scary. That's all it had to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw Rick's cut, I realized it was not. It didn't have enough to it. So I went back and shot some mood shit, and shot one sequence where a girl gets killed, and things like that, and then a little more of juice in the ending. But that's absolutely true. Because forget if it was told to do that, or I saw the movie and I thought, hey, this is flat as a drum.
Mm.
It's just flat.
Which girl getting killed was yours?
I'm not going to tell you, okay? What do you think of that?
I think you don't remember.
And I do remember, and I'm not going to tell you.
And the ending, so the ending was yours?
What do you mean it was mine? I mean, I don't.
You shot
here's
that.
What I don't
sequence,
remember what I wrote, but I remember the ending lacked a little bit or something along those lines.
Okay.
Anyway, I found myself out there in San Dimas or Sierra Madre, one of the two places, where they shot the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That
cool.
square? Well, we shot out there. It was great. And Ann Robinson from War of the Worlds showed up the night we were shooting to say hello. She lived out there. It was great. Mrs. Robinson, I saw you when I was a little kid. But that's about all I remember.
So, Halloween 3...
But what I shot wasn't any great shakes. It was just, I just thought we had to have something.
Okay.
I'm not going to say what I was a genius behind anything here. And it was just, oh, come on now, guys.
Yeah.
It needs to be moodier. Why isn't this moody? I don't know. And I didn't make it any moodier. And what am I, Rick Rosenthal went on to a career, so don't listen to me.
What do you think of the film now?
I haven't seen it in so many years. I haven't seen it. I don't know. I don't evaluate that.
Do you watch your stuff after you...
God, no. Are you kidding? Why?
No?
Why? Why do that? I just
curious.
see things that I wish we'd done. God,
yeah.
Why did I do that?
Yeah.
That is the dumbest mistake a human being can make. Why? I'll always do that, and it's just awful. I don't want to be that way.
Yeah.
I'd rather be happy.
How quickly... Well, Halloween 3 must have come around almost immediately after...
Yeah, it was pretty quick. And
2 was released.
Yeah. But by that time, I was disgusted with the Halloween story, per se.
Yeah.
Just disgusted with it. I didn't want to deal with it anymore. I thought a year or two earlier, I thought there was no story, and by God, I was right. There's no story here, fellas and girls. So why are we doing this? But anyway, onward, and we went onward,
Was it your call to change to the...
Yeah, it was mine. I thought, actually, Joe Dante's suggestion.
Okay.
Oh, let's do another kind of story. Oh, that's a great idea.
And was the idea then to continue that theme, maybe yearly, to have a different Halloween?
Yes.
Yeah. And what happened?
Well, Halloween 3 was bombed because people wanted to see the Michael Myers in the mask. Yeah. So I was wrong, and nobody liked the fact that it didn't make the money it was supposed to make.
Mm-hmm.
And so it went back to the original, There we go again. Which is fine. I didn't have anything to do with anything after that.
Yeah.
Just fine with me.
Well, Tommy Lee Wallace finally came on board to direct Halloween 3.
He did.
And how did you convince him to come into it then if he wasn't willing to take a sequel?
Remember.
Okay. Do you remember did you have any discussions about future storylines after the Mask storyline?
No, we didn't talk about that.
Were you asked to be involved with 4, 5, or 6?
I don't remember being asked, and I didn't want to by then. I wanted to move on. Did
you watch 4 or 5?
I can't remember. I don't think I watched the one right after 3. I don't believe I did.
Okay. That's the one people... I was curious because that's the one everyone says sort of retains some of the atmosphere from the first film, and I was just curious what your take was.
I don't know. I don't remember watching it. Okay.
See, the family thing that was introduced in Part 2 ended up taking the series into really bizarre territory, and as it went on, it just got, out of necessity, as people die, it just got more and more convoluted and bizarre. And that's, when 7 came about, which is H2O, I think that's why it seemed like everybody was so interested in sort of hitting the reset button and picking up where 2 left off. And it was said at the time that you were going to be involved with that one. Is that correct?
Well, it was said by whom?
It was I remember I have an issue of Fangoria where it mentions that you were going to be involved.
Well, I have to be honest, at the time, Jamie wanted to get back together again and make a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Having the fun we had in the old days. So Deborah, the Weinsteins had purchased the rights, and we went in and talked to him. It was a hilarious meeting.
Yeah?
Oh, it was funny. I don't know if you've ever met Bob Weinstein. It's just funny. But Jamie wanted to do it really badly. and she came up with H2O. That was her idea. So we had a dinner meeting, and Jamie and Deborah and I, we talked about it. And reluctantly, I went along to this meeting with Weinstein, and Jamie was enthusiastic and great as usual. And so Weinstein says, "Well, what's the story?" And I said, "Well, we have no story. There's never been a story." And he didn't like that much. So I was off to shoot another movie, and as I remember, and Kevin Williamson, you know who he is?
Yeah.
And he wrote a treatment and sent it out to me to read. And I read this, and, I talked to him on the phone, and he said, it could be a drama. And I just didn't want to do it. I mean, it wasn't that it was bad. It wasn't that the movie ended up being terrible. I don't really know. I didn't pay much attention. I just didn't want to personally do it. And I still get asked. I just got asked last month if I wanted to do another Halloween. Last month. It's unbelievable.
With H2O, and I mean, you entertained it up to the point of having a meeting.
I didn't ever really entertain it. Well, first of all, they wouldn't pay me any money. My salary was up pretty good at that point.
Mm-hmm.
They want to make movies for very little and pay you nothing.
Yeah.
They never pay you anything. Well, that's great, but for them. So I kept telling Deborah, there's not enough in this. And she kept, I'm an old softy when it comes to Jamie Lee and Deborah. I went along with things for a while, and I just figured it would go away. And if I kept saying no, and I did, it finally went away.
So you were approached recently. Was that by the Weinsteins
I've been approached
again?
over and over and over again by the Weinsteins. Would you like to make Halloween? Yeah.
What would it take for you to return to the series?
$20 million payday. No, I don't know. Nothing. I don't want to. First of all, it's no win. I can't win.
Yeah.
I just can't. Now, after all the movies that have been made, I can't make something that's as special, unique, and simple and creepy as the first one. Mm-hmm. Because everybody's seen that. Not everybody's seen it, but it's become generic.
Yeah.
There's nothing I could do differently. I mean, I could change the story. I've all thought about changing the story and making it somewhat different and more complicated, but the movie's not going to be better. Because the movie was just this little horror film, this little tale of this force, this evil force that comes to town. Mm-hmm. It's got its bare bones story, and all it is an exercise in this sort of scary style. Well, boy, the minute you can't try to reproduce that, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So it's not going to be good for me. I mean, I would entertain it if it was a $20 million payday, sure. I have to think about that.
You said that you had thought about taking it into more complicated territory. What have you considered for it?
Oh, I don't know. Cutting his head off.
Done that. What else?
No, and it still lives, and they keep the head someplace. Probably wrong with it. I don't know. You must understand, the big thing is that I emotionally detached myself from the Halloween series after the first one. Emotionally. And for me as a director, I'm involved. My heart has to be involved to make it any good. Even if I fuck up, and the movie doesn't come out right, I have to be emotionally attached to it. For me to do Halloween, I just don't care about it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't care about it. I'm not passionate about that, about directing it, and I can't win, and I can't make a better movie. I can make a movie with a bigger budget and more tools more visual tools today. But it's not going to be the same. I've told you this. I'm repeating myself. That's what happens when you get old. You start repeating yourself and drooling.
People keep on referring to Halloween with you, and it seems like it's impossible to read an article that doesn't reference it.
John Carpenter, I know.
Yeah, and what is that?
Well, it's been replaced a little bit by The Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. In recent years, The Thing has finally hit its stride in reputation.
Despite its initial...
Oh, yeah, its initial damnation.
Wow.
It's really funny. It's really, really funny. Well, it's funny like the scene in The Big Sleep when Elisha Cook's character gets poisoned and he laughs, and Bogart says, "What's funny?" And he says, "Nothing's funny." That's kind of funny.
Did you see the or have any involvement with that remake?
No.
The Thing. Did they approach you about any involvement with that?
No. They just called. The producer's very nice, Eric Newman. He's a very nice guy, and he said, "Well, we want to remake it. We're going to do the Norwegian camp." And he invited me into a meeting, and that's great. And Universal didn't owe me anything, didn't pay me anything.
Sure.
So
it ended up not being so much of a prequel and being sort of a.
Yet. I haven't seen it. I hear it's not bad.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's my movie. I don't want to see.
The remake thing is nuts.
I know. That's a sure thing. They're trying to get sure things.
But it's not.
I know.
But
tell me about it. I know this. But it's such a monstrous machine, advertising and getting interest in something and getting awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard. It's so hard for them to do now. They want some title that people recognize.
Yeah.
But they've remade everything almost. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
They remade Flight of the Phoenix, for God's sakes. I'm not saying it was a bad remake, but what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I don't want to bitch. You're not interested in this. You want to know about Halloween. Okay, what do you want to know?
To touch on the brother and sister thing, do you think that was a mistake for a series?
No, I do not.
That?
I think that was probably a good step. I think that should have been developed more. Had I had a little more time and a little more interest, I could have made something more out of that. But,
well, you kind of did with the reshoots, the television reshoots for one.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, but they were awful too. But that was another thing. That's when I knew that I would never wanted to step foot on a Halloween set again, because I didn't do a very good job with the reshoots. It was just for time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all it was. Anyway, I sound negative, don't I? I'm sorry about that. Listen,
no.
Every Halloween movie's been wonderful. I've enjoyed every one of them. Show business is wonderful, and I don't know why I'm talking like this.
No. I completely understand where you're coming from on it, and
ignore the barking dog. That's
the reason the sequels are relevant to you is in terms of question is just because it's so attached, and every time a new film comes up, it always goes back to, well, maybe this time John will be involved, maybe John can redeem it. And the fans now, at this point, like the Weinsteins just shelved the new Halloween film. It was going to be this 3D thing. It's no longer on the slate. This is surely what you were offered recently. And
I don't think so. They wanted to go back to the original Halloween again, believe it or not.
That's what fans want, yeah.
And that's what they keep asking. Go back to the original. Even after Rob Zombie's first Halloween remake, the first one, they asked me, "Do you want to remake that?"
Really?
Yes. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It is.
It's only unbelievable because look, it's all about money. Yeah. all about making some bucks.
I'll say though, John, that is what the fans want. I mean, and it's.
Well, what have the fans given me? Okay. Why don't they give me? I mean, if the fans come up with $20 million, I'll direct their movie. I'm just teasing.
No, I know.
I'm just teasing. Sorry.
But
what the fans want.
They hold up the original in.
That's wonderful.
Religious.
That's wonderful. That's really nice. And but I don't blame him. I think the original was a unique movie when it was made.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a really nice style and simplicity for a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
Budget. Wow. And I'm very, very proud of it. I'm very happy that it touched the audience the way it did. But I can't bring that magic back.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with John on all things Halloween. You can always reach out to the show at 951-357-6955 to leave a voicemail. That can be a question, comment, suggestion for themes or guests on an upcoming episode. You can also reach out to me at radiohourpod@gmail.com, as well as justinbeahm.com, where you can hit that contact form on there. You can also reach out via social media, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you again for listening. I look forward to connecting with you again on the next episode, and I certainly hope that your October is off to a beautiful, haunting start here. Let's enjoy this month, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
You have been listening to the Justin Beahm Radio Hour. The Radio Hour is a production of Reverend Entertainment, copyright 2024. All rights reserved.